Hi guys, this is week 14 Project Life, and today I'm keeping things a little bit simpler. I've got no kits to use. I've just got the latest release from Kellie stamps and some bits and pieces that I had sitting around on my desk. So I already had these 3x4 cards cut out. I think they were left over from a Feed Your Craft page I did at the start of my Project Life album. Loved the kind of rainbowiness of them, but I ended up just picking blues for this week's layout, and those sort of went best with my rainbow photo here. And I had some Rosie Studios 6x6 paper pad sitting there. I think it's the Sugar Bell collection. And I didn't even need to cut any of those out because I already had some 4x6 pieces that I had left over from something else, so I've used those as well. Now I'm using the currently 2019 stamp set to just do a little bit of repeat stamping to add a really small light pattern onto these blue cards. One's sort of lighter blue and one's a darker blue, but I am using the same coloured ink for both of them. So I've just grabbed these tiny little stamps. One says feeling and one says loving, and I did one card off camera so that you weren't sitting here watching me stamp forever. And now I'm just showing you how exactly I did this. So it's easier doing the second one. I just used the stamp on the original card to make sure that the angle was right. So put the stamp on an angle and then set your block down straight on top of that, and that way you'll end up being able to stamp the same angle for all of these little stamps up the card. Now you'll be able to see from the one that I did the first time, I'm going to put a photo on top of these, so I don't need to stamp the entire card. Just stamping the bottom, then seeing where my photo is going to go, and then I can just carry on going up and around the sides and the top there. So, I mean, you still have to stamp a fair amount of the card, but it does save you a little bit of time because you don't have to do the entire inside. If you don't know what you're going to put on your card, then I would suggest stamping the entire thing, just in case you miss one that you need to fill in later. It's a real pain having to go back and try to fill it in and fit the stamps in nicely. So this is just a really simple way to create a really basic pattern and just stretch your stamps a little bit further. So I loved that there were all these little words on this stamp set so that I could create these two matching but different cards. So all I need to do for those ones is just stick the photo down on top, and that covers up the hole in the stamping like I said, and that's the basics for my layout this week all done. Now there are these really awesome numbers on this currently 2019 stamp set, and they also have these little grid backgrounds. So I did do some testing on a spare photo to see whether I could stamp white on black, which I can, and whether I could stamp black on white, which I can, but it took me a few different inks to get there, and in the end I'm pretty sure I'm just going to use Memento Tuxedo Black for printing for stamping the black backgrounds onto my regular photos. I will use my Brilliance Moonlight White to stamp the white onto the photos, and then when I go to stamp the numbers on top of these backgrounds, I'll also use the Brilliance on top of the black. And I'm pretty sure I ended up going with Stays On to do the black over the white. That gave me the darkest black over the white there. The other two inks I did try my Tuxedo Memento Black, and it sort of sunk into the white ink. So the Stays On was the one that stayed on top, I guess, the most and didn't absorb into that white ink. So I'm kind of working batch in a batch. I've got 3 photos that I'm going to do the same treatment on. So I've got my my black background, and I'm going to do my white numbers, and you can see that Brilliance Moonlight White stamps really nicely over that black. And again, I mean, I say this every time, but the success of stamping onto photos is going to come down to the photo paper that your photo is printed on, not necessarily the ink that you're choosing to stamp with. I print my photos at home on Canon Photo Glossy 2 paper, and I never have an issue stamping onto them. if you get your photos professionally printed, it's going to depend on the type of printing process that they use and the type of paper that they use. So I suggest grabbing a spare photo at some point and just experimenting with which ink works best for you. For my little cup of tea photo here, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm just going to stamp the numbers in black straight onto the photo. I liked that there was a degrees thing. Our weather has definitely been cooling off here, so it was nice to get that documented. There's both a Fahrenheit and a Celsius stamp there, so that was fine. And then I decided, since I had these three the 3 timestamps on here, I wanted to add some of these little words in underneath, and I got a tiny bit stuck because I'd already used 2 of the words for those cards and I didn't really want to repeat them, so I was mostly just trying to pick the words that were relevant to the photo without repeating them, and I did manage to get there. We've been binge watching Married at First Sight this season, so I had to pop this onto Project Life somewhere, and this week seemed appropriate because I had this awesome movie night stamp set to work with. So I screen grabbed this TV series poster just from Google and I printed that out. It's not quite a 4x6, but I just backed it with a little bit of that pattern paper, and then I've stamped some of my favorite stamps in the white ink, the Moonlight white ink, just on top where the actual title was, so it kind of blends in but adds my own little take on it. Now I'm going to work on my title card, and it doesn't quite go according to plan, and I probably should have known. As you can see, I wasn't super sure about how I was going to do this. I decided that since there were 4 letters in the word week, and there were 4 little blocks here, that I would use those to create my title. Obviously there are numbers in that stamp set as well, so that's my week number. But the thing is the little 4 blocks are clearly more suited to time, as they have the bigger space through the middle of them, and the spacing just never quite looked right to me. I had picked out these alphas, I think they're Pink Fresh Studio, my favourite little pale blue alphas, and you can see it just doesn't look right. It looks wrong, it's a little bit odd, and I'm not sort of happy with it. I try and persevere, but you'll see I end up having to fix this anyway. I need a label to put my date stamp on, and I went through my stash and I found these really pretty silver ones from Ellie Edwards. They're from the December Daily collection last year, I think. There's a gold and a silver, and I thought the silver was more appropriate with all the cool toned colours this week, and I'm gonna go ahead and date stamp it. I'm still not happy with it. I already know I'm not happy with it. I'm just trying to persevere, and I can't quite work out how I'm gonna go forward from here. For now, I'm just gonna ignore it and I move on to these other stamped cards. I decided to add labels to those ones as well, just to tie in the spot of silver. It is quite bright in real life, and to tie that in to the rest of my spread, I decided to add a couple more labels, and they're going to go on these stamped cards here. So I'm faffing about with these really pretty alphas again to tie in that title card, and I can't quite get the spacing right, and what I've done is I've stamped feeling and I'm writing excited, except that I can't get the spacing right and it doesn't look right, and it takes me the longest time to realize that's because I've written exited, not excited. So then I had to kill those off and work out whether I could fit excited on there, and I sort of can. I do have to squeeze those all up just a little bit to fit on there, although I'll end up sort of changing those later anyway. But once I worked that out, and I'm so pleased that I did and didn't just carry on putting feeling exited. That's definitely not the feeling that I had. And I'm kind of left with these awkward little labels. They're much shorter than the rest of them, and I can't quite work out how to put this arrowed label on. This was just a photo of the design team announcement for Feed Your Craft. So this time I added the label offset to the side and the bottom, trimmed both of those off, and I'm adding my alphas offset to the label, so they're mostly sitting on the stamped card. And I quite like the look of it, but it doesn't really go with what I've done on this card here. And so because I'm attempting to get a more consistent look, I move these alphas again and just move them so that they start off the label. It was too late to peel the label off and move it any, because I didn't want to rip any of that stamping that I've done. So that's the closest that I've got. I'm still not happy with how that title card sits, and I think it's because I've got I've got four of those square things now rather than 3, which is what looked good in the first place. So turned the camera off and had a think about it. Obviously I've stamped that directly onto the paper, so I'm not going to be able to rescue that in any other way apart from adding something else to it. So I went through my stash of paler blue 4x6 cards and papers and just found something that I can use to cover this up. So as you can see, peeling off the label didn't work. The alphas peeled off really nicely, and so now I just need to cover up the stamping that I've done. I had originally intended that I would just redo the card, but I really liked that striped pattern, so I'm just going to try and make it work with adding something to the bottom of it instead. So I've just trimmed a little piece of that 4x6 card to cover up the stamping down the bottom. It is a thicker card, so it covers up that black stamping really nicely, and I'm just deciding top or bottom for the stripe. And I'm going to go with bottom. That's sort of my style, having it down the bottom, and everything else is going to be pretty much the same. I'm going to add the alpha in, the label sticker back in exactly where it was, except this time instead of stamping those little blocks behind the letters, I'm just going to stick my alphas down, straight down on top, and I'm going to re-stamp the numbers from the stamp set, but rather than have them stick out in black, I'm just going to add the same ink color that I did the stamping for the little 3x4 cards. So we get there eventually, and I'm going to go back to the original placement for those cards and call it done. As I said, both of these stamp sets are available at Kellie Stamps today, so I will leave the link for you in the description box. Head over and snap these up for yourself. That currently 2019 one is going to be perfect for week in the life if that's something that you're going to be doing. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave me any questions or comments you've got down below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and if you want to keep watching, there's a couple more videos on screen. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye guys.